So Jack, can I ask you a couple of questions quick? So when you were working up there, did you have a lot of meets where you would have 675 and 676? Where did you usually cross at?
We didn't cross because you got up to Sumas before the crew went on duty came down. And that's why they could use one 4-unit consist when they got the diesels. Engine went up and we traded engines during the process. We were both up there at the same time. So the 4-unit FT replaced 3 W3 steam engines. And of course you had a switch engine too up there, but that was a much better arrangement. But 675 and 6 did not meet. Now, there were other northbound trains.
Like what?
Well, in the 60s, instead of a Arlington local or Cedar Woolley local, they had a Bellingham local called right out of Auburn, 931 and 2. And 675 was on duty at 7:30. 931 and 2 was generally about 9:30. And they went up to Bellingham. But they left Bellingham earlier than they came out at Wickersham probably before we were still switching up there. So
was that a one-day job then? I mean, up one day,
they
up
had
one day.
2 crews on that, up one day and back the next.
Yeah.
But it was all day, they get back in good shape. And of course, then there was coming out of Auburn, the Everett turn at midnight or 1 a.m. I worked that a lot. And we're going to have a picture of a poster for the convention of the Everett, not the shop they had. And we've got Gary give me a picture. But so we had out of Auburn, you had the Everett turn first, and then 675, and then 931 2, or one of Woolley or Arlington locals. The Bellingham job was kind of late in the game, I think. But there were, I think they had, at one time they had an Everett Bellingham local and ran at night. But then they had a Bellingham switcher too. So there was a lot of assignments up there. Some of them based at Bellingham and some out of Everett. I do remember working an Everett Bellingham turn that was on for a while, and it was, I don't know how they got 16 hours in that short, but there was a lot of work on that night job.
They did a lot of switching then.
Yeah, so it was a busy place on the north end.
So then another question, Jack, I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about the 3 different fellows that had the 3 different locomotives
Yeah.
Back in the steam days. So were they assigned different locomotives because the locomotives operated so differently? Or
Well, at one time, engineers had their own engines, and they would gussy them up and paint the brake valve a certain color. And they say in the early days that when the engine went in for the back shop for repairs, they didn't work on a different engine. They went in with their engine and actually worked in the back shop. They tell me that.
Really?
And when I started, and I remember before I went to work at Auburn, there was a chain gang engineer lived right across when we lived on First Street, Carl Tenstrom. He worked at Yakima. He had his own alley, a 4010. And we had all these Z3, these Solemn alleys. And apparently they had assigned engineers for a while. But 675 and 6 was the only one left, actually. The night transfers, Bill is the old Scotsman, Bill Casey, the guy I told you, such a mean guy. I think he had the 1682, and whoever went to Tacoma transfer, Crew 3, they had the 1674.
Yeah, there's Jimmy
But,
Darker had the 1911.
Darker had the 1911 on that transfer.
Yeah.
That was one of the last engines running around. It was an oil burner.
Yeah.
But on the Sumas run, Oscar Lindahl, old Icy Scandinavian, he had the 1791, and Wimpy McBride had the 1745, and Armstrong, the one that was killed at Kent in 1955, he had the 1826, I think it was. And it had a little longer tank than the other two. It had a 10,000 gallon tank, and the others were 93 or 90. The NP always had stingy water tanks.
So then where would you take water both directions?
Well, on 675, you could, depending on tonnage, you took water at Woodinville usually because you got Maltby and Getchell to contend with, and then you got to Edgecombe, you filled up there, took coal at Arlington, and there was a water tank at Acme if you ran short, but there were no heavy grades though, so it was, I don't know where else there. The timetable showed where he had. There was a W at the time, that was water. You could look at the employee timetable.
And so that when you would get to Sumas or you would get to Bellingham, you'd fill up on
Oh, yeah.
water
Yeah.
and supplies there.
I remember taking it at Sumas. Apparently, they had a way of doing it. I don't remember a regular water tank. There was water at Acme, which was not too far down the line. And, of course, Arlington.
And Bromar.
Or not, Edgecombe, actually.
Edgecombe. Yeah.
Well, great, Jack. You were fantastic.
Well,
That
I
was
hope
fun.
most of that was true. And Eric Hoffer, that longshoreman philosopher, he said, a lot of things I thought I did when I was young, maybe I didn't do them, but I thought I did.